Welcome to the Velvet Crown Tales. Today's tale is called I Stole the Villain's Crown. Now every hero wants me dead. Thousands of years ago, the world was ruled by 7 magical crowns. Each crown chose its own ruler, and together they kept the kingdoms in balance. There was the crown of light, the crown of storms, the crown of flames, the crown of tides, the crown of life, the crown of death, the crown of shadows. And then, there was one crown whose name was erased from history, the Obsidian Crown. Every child grew up hearing the same story. It belonged to the greatest villain the world had ever known. The heroes defeated him, the Obsidian Crown vanished, and evil disappeared forever, or so everyone believed. For generations, the kingdom of Alaris celebrated the same holiday. Victory Day. The day the legendary heroes defeated the Dark King and saved the world from eternal darkness. Every street was draped in banners of brilliant gold and crimson. Children raced through the crowded marketplace, carrying tiny wooden crowns. Musicians filled the air with cheerful melodies, while merchants called out from colorful stalls, overflowing with sweet pastries, polished weapons, enchanted trinkets, and brightly dyed fabrics. Statues of the 7 heroes towered over the city square, each carved from flawless white marble, each wearing a proud smile, each remembered as the greatest champions the world had ever known. At least, that was the story everyone believed. The Royal Museum stood at the center of the celebration like a monument to history itself. Inside its grand halls rested hundreds of relics recovered from the final battle. Broken swords, ancient armor, fragments of enchanted banners, even pieces of the battlefield itself. People traveled from every kingdom simply to walk those halls, to stand where history had been preserved, to remember the heroes, or to admire the treasures hidden among the laughing crowds. A young woman watched the museum with very different intentions. Lyra, 22 years old, dark hair tied beneath a weathered hood, quick hands, quicker instincts, and a reputation the city guards had spent years trying, and failing, to catch. Some called her a thief. Others called her a nuisance. Lyra preferred survivor. She never stole from honest merchants, never robbed struggling families. Her targets were always the same: greedy nobles, corrupt officials, merchants who grew rich while children starved outside their doors. The gold she kept fed her. The rest quietly found its way into empty hands that needed it more. She wasn't trying to become a hero, she was simply trying to survive. Today, however, she had come for something entirely different. She adjusted the leather gloves on her hands and smiled toward the enormous museum. Let's see how well the kingdom protects a fake crown. The museum doors opened. The guards welcomed another wave of visitors. Without hesitation, Lyra disappeared into the crowd. The Royal Museum welcomed thousands of visitors every Victory Day. Families wandered from exhibit to exhibit, while guides proudly retold the story of the 7 heroes. Children stared in awe at legendary swords that supposedly ended the Great War. Parents pointed toward cracked suits of enchanted armor. Every artifact reminded the kingdom of one simple truth: the heroes had saved them all. Lyra slipped through the crowded halls unnoticed. Years of surviving on the streets had taught her one invaluable lesson: the busiest places were often the easiest to disappear in. She moved with the flow of visitors, never walking too quickly, never looking nervous, never attracting attention. To everyone around her, she was simply another curious traveler, admiring history. One exhibit after another passed before her: the Sword of Dawn, the Shield of the First King, the Crimson Banner of Victory. Beautiful relics, protected by layers of enchantment that would take armies to breach. Fortunately, she wasn't interested in any of them. Her eyes remained fixed on the largest chamber at the center of the museum. Above its entrance hung a polished golden sign. The Fall of the Dark King crowds filled the room. Some laughed nervously. Others whispered as though entering sacred ground. In the very center, resting beneath a flawless crystal dome, sat a black crown. Its jagged points curved toward the ceiling, like frozen claws. Despite the bright sunlight pouring through the stained glass windows, the crown seemed to swallow the light around it. A bronze plaque rested beside the display, replica of the Obsidian Crown, The original was destroyed at the Battle of Ashfall. Lyra smiled. A fake, exactly what she had hoped for. Collectors paid fortunes for convincing replicas, especially ones displayed by the royal family. Selling it would feed half the orphan district for months. She slowly circled the display. 2 guards. 1 elderly curator. 4 enchanted alarm crystals hidden beneath the pedestal. Simple enough. She waited. Victory Day demonstrations happened every hour. Right on schedule. A trumpet echoed through the museum. Every guide called for visitors to gather near the Hall of Heroes. Within seconds, the room emptied. Just as Lyra had predicted. Only the 2 guards remained. She smiled beneath her hood. Showtime. From her sleeve slipped a tiny silver sphere, no larger than a marble. She rolled it across the polished floor. The sphere struck a marble column. With a sharp crack, it burst into a cloud of glittering blue smoke. What was that? Both guards rushed toward the disturbance. The moment their backs turned, Lyra moved. One graceful leap carried her over the velvet barrier. A thin enchanted blade appeared in her hand, not to break the glass, but to interrupt the protective rune carved around its base. She traced the blade along a nearly invisible silver line. The glowing runes flickered once, then faded. The crystal dome lifted effortlessly. Lyra couldn't help but grin. They really should hire better security. She reached toward the crown. Her fingertips brushed the cold black metal. Nothing happened. She lifted it from its pedestal. Still nothing. No ancient curse. No terrifying magic. Just expensive craftsmanship. She laughed quietly. I expected more. Then, the museum trembled. The museum floor trembled beneath Lyra's boots. At first, it was so subtle she thought she had imagined it. Then the crystal chandeliers above her began to sway. Dust drifted from the vaulted ceiling. What was that? One of the guards turned toward the exhibit. Before Lyra could answer, a deafening crack echoed through the museum. The marble pedestal split down the center. The black crown slipped from her hands. Instead of falling, it hovered, completely motionless. The room fell silent. The guards froze. Visitors stopped walking. Even the musicians outside seemed to disappear beneath an unnatural stillness. The crown floated higher. Dark mist poured from beneath the broken pedestal. Ancient symbols, older than any kingdom, began to burn across the marble floor in brilliant silver light. The elderly museum curator staggered backward, his face drained of color. That's impossible. The ground shook again. With a thunderous roar, the entire pedestal collapsed into darkness. Beneath it, a hidden chamber slowly emerged from the earth. Not a vault. Not a treasure room. A shrine. Its walls were carved with thousands of ancient runes. Broken chains lay scattered across the black stone floor. At the center rested another crown. It was identical, yet somehow different. This one seemed alive. Its obsidian metal shimmered like liquid night. Tiny veins of violet light pulsed beneath its surface. The crown in Lyra's hands cracked. The black metal crumbled into ash. A replica. Nothing more. The real obsidian crown slowly rose from its forgotten altar. Every candle inside the museum extinguished at once. Darkness swallowed the hall. Only the crown remained illuminated. It drifted silently through the air, past frightened visitors, past armored guards, past the high priest, past the commander of the royal knights, past the descendants of the 7 heroes themselves. Every person instinctively reached toward it. Every person hoped the crown would choose them. Instead, it stopped before Lyra. No, she whispered. I'm nobody. The crown ignored her protest. With terrifying gentleness, it lowered onto her head. The moment the cold metal touched her skin, the entire city heard it. A single heartbeat. Not from the sky, not from the earth, from the crown itself. Boom. A wave of ancient magic exploded across the capital. Every enchanted artifact awakened. Every bell rang. Every magical flame burned black. Far beyond the kingdom's borders, forgotten ruins stirred. Creatures that had slept for centuries slowly opened their eyes. Someone had claimed the obsidian crown. Inside the museum, no one moved. No one breathed. The elderly curator slowly fell to his knees. His voice barely rose above a whisper. The prophecy. One by one, everyone else followed. Not in respect, in fear. The obsidian crown has chosen its queen. No one spoke. No one dared to breathe. The obsidian crown rested upon Lyra's head, as though it had always belonged there. The violet light surrounding it slowly faded, yet the silence inside the museum only grew heavier. Lyra's heart pounded. What? What is happening? The elderly curator stared at her with wide, terrified eyes. His lips trembled. Then he shouted with every ounce of strength left in his aging body. Seal the museum! The spell shattered the silence. Massive enchanted doors slammed shut with a thunderous boom. Runes ignited across every window. Golden barriers erupted around every entrance. Visitors screamed. Children cried. Panic spread through the grand hall. The royal knights drew their swords. Steel echoed through the chamber. Their captain slowly stepped forward. His voice was calm. Cold. Remove the crown. Lyra reached toward it. The instant her fingers touched the black metal, a burst of shadow magic exploded outward. The captain was thrown across the room. Several knights crashed into marble pillars. The crown never moved. Lyra stumbled backward in horror. I didn't do that. No one believed her. The high priest raised his jeweled staff. His face had become pale as death. The obsidian crown protects its bearer. It has accepted her. Murmurs spread through the frightened crowd. The Dark Queen. The prophecy. It has begun again. Lyra's breathing became shallow. I don't even know what you're talking about. Another knight pointed his sword directly at her. Liar. You touched the forbidden crown. You summoned ancient magic. You are the villain's chosen. Before she could answer, a deep horn echoed through the city. Then another. And another. Every alarm bell in the capital began ringing at once. Outside the museum, thousands of soldiers flooded the streets. Griffin riders filled the skies. Battle mages formed glowing circles around the palace district. Word spread through the city faster than wildfire. The obsidian crown had returned. Inside the museum, the captain slowly lifted his sword. His voice carried through the silent hall. By order of the crown, I place you under arrest for high treason and conspiracy with the Dark King. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. What? I've never even met the Dark King. You don't have to. The crown already has. The knights advanced together. One step. Then another. Every escape route was blocked. Lyra looked toward the towering museum windows. 40 feet above the streets below. Impossible. She looked toward the enchanted doors. Sealed. The crown felt strangely warm against her forehead. Almost alive. Then, a voice whispered inside her mind. So quietly she almost missed it. Run. Lyra froze. She looked around. No one else had reacted. Again, the whisper came. Gentle. Ancient. Almost sorrowful. Run. Before they kill you. Escape. The whisper echoed through Lyra's mind once more. Run. The knights charged. Steel flashed beneath the sunlight pouring through the museum windows. Lyra reacted on instinct. She ducked beneath the first sword. Another blade sliced through the air where her head had been only a heartbeat before. She rolled across the polished marble floor. I'm not your enemy, she shouted. No one listened. The captain pointed his sword toward her. Take the crown. Alive if possible. If not. He never finished. 3 battle mages stepped forward together. Golden circles of light formed beneath their feet. Runes blazed through the air. Chains of pure magic shot toward Lyra. She threw herself sideways. The first chain shattered a marble pillar. The second wrapped around a statue of one of the 7 heroes. The third wrapped around her ankle. Lyra crashed hard against the floor. The magical chain tightened. She clawed desperately at the glowing links. I can't move, the whisper returned. Calm. Patient. Reach for the chain. What? Trust me. Lyra hesitated. then placed one trembling hand against the glowing magic. The obsidian crown pulsed. The chain instantly blackened. Tiny cracks spread through the enchantment. Then, it shattered into thousands of glowing fragments. Every mage gasped. Impossible! The captain's face filled with disbelief. Only the ancient kings could break royal bindings. Lyra stared at her own hands. I don't know how. Outside, the great bells of the capital continued to ring. Boom, boom, boom. Every citizen now knew. The obsidian crown had returned. More soldiers flooded into the museum. Archers climbed the balconies overlooking the central hall. Every exit disappeared behind walls of steel. The whisper spoke again. Above you. Lyra looked upward. Nearly 40 feet overhead. A massive stained glass dome stretched across the ceiling. Sunlight poured through brilliant images of the 7 heroes. One empty space rested at the very center. An unfinished circle, as though someone had once intended to place another figure there, then erased it. The whisper grew stronger. Jump! Lyra laughed in disbelief. That's impossible. Trust the crown. The captain raised his sword. Fire! Dozens of enchanted arrows streaked toward her. Without thinking, Lyra ran. Straight toward the center of the hall. She planted one foot on the broken pedestal, leapt, and for one impossible moment, gravity forgot her. Dark violet magic swirled beneath her boots. She soared high above the terrified crowd. The arrows passed harmlessly beneath her. Every eye followed her ascent. She crashed through the stained glass ceiling. Thousands of glittering fragments exploded into the bright summer sky. For one heartbeat, the entire capital looked up. They saw a lone woman wearing the obsidian crown, standing against the sun. Then she disappeared across the rooftops. Silence filled the shattered museum. The captain slowly lowered his sword. His voice was barely more than a whisper. She's escaped. The high priest closed his eyes. No. His expression darkened. The crown has begun choosing its own path. The wind tore through Lyra's hair as she landed hard on the roof of a nearby watchtower. Pain shot through her legs. She stumbled forward, nearly falling from the edge. I should be dead. She looked down at the street below. The museum had erupted into chaos. Thousands of people poured into the avenues. Royal guards surrounded the building. Battle mages raised shimmering barriers around the palace district. Every church bell continued to ring. Every banner of Victory Day had become a warning. The obsidian crown had returned. And with it, its new bearer. Find her! The command echoed across the city. Griffin riders launched into the sky. Their massive wings beat against the morning air as they searched every rooftop. Tracking hounds barked from the streets below. Crossbowmen climbed towers overlooking the capital. Within minutes, the city had become a prison. Lyra pulled the hood of her cloak over the crown. To her surprise, the black metal dissolved into shadow. It vanished beneath the fabric. Only she could still feel its weight. What? She reached toward her head. Nothing. To everyone else, the crown had disappeared. The whisper returned. The crown hides itself from those who would steal it. Lyra stopped walking. Who are you? For several moments, there was only silence. Then, I have waited. For centuries. A chill ran through her. You can hear me? Only you. What are you? The voice did not answer. Instead, it asked a question. Do you know why they fear me? Lyra looked back toward the museum. I thought they feared the Dark King. The whisper grew quieter. Almost sad. That is what they were taught. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the rooftops behind her. Stone shattered. A bolt of golden magic slammed into the chimney she had passed only seconds before. There! A griffin rider pointed directly at her. I found her! 3 more riders dove from the clouds. Sunlight reflected from their silver armor. Their enchanted spears crackled with blue lightning. Lyra cursed under her breath. So much for hiding! She sprinted across the rooftops, clay tiles shattered beneath her boots. The Griffin riders closed the distance with terrifying speed. One rider thrust his spear. Lightning exploded across the rooftop. The blast hurled Lyra through the air. She crashed onto another roof, sliding dangerously close to the edge. The whisper spoke again. "Do not fear them. They're trying to kill me." "No. They are trying to silence the truth." Before Lyra could ask what that meant, the oldest tower in the capital appeared before her. Its massive clock had stopped long ago. Its doors had been sealed for generations. Yet, as Lyra approached, the ancient doors slowly opened by themselves. Golden dust drifted into the sunlight. The whisper spoke one final time. "Come. Someone has been waiting for you." Lyra hesitated. Behind her, the Griffin riders landed. Steel rang from their armor as they gave chase. Ahead, only darkness waited inside the forgotten tower. Taking one steady breath, Lyra stepped inside. The ancient doors slammed shut behind her. The heavy stone doors slammed shut behind Lyra. Darkness swallowed the ancient tower. Only narrow beams of sunlight slipped through cracks high above, illuminating countless floating specks of dust. Outside, the Griffin riders pounded against the sealed entrance. The ancient doors didn't move. It was as though the tower itself refused to let them enter. Lyra leaned against the cold stone wall, struggling to catch her breath. "What is this place?" No answer came, only silence. She took a cautious step forward, then another. The circular chamber stretched far above her, disappearing into shadows. Shelves carved directly into the stone walls held thousands of forgotten books. Ancient scrolls rested inside crystal cases. Weapons older than the kingdom itself hung untouched for centuries. Some were broken, others still shimmered with sleeping magic. In the center of the chamber stood a massive stone pedestal. Upon it rested an enormous book, bound in black leather. Its cover bore the same strange symbol engraved inside the obsidian crown. The moment Lyra approached, the book slowly opened by itself. Its brittle pages turned one after another, stopping on a single illustration. 8 crowns. Not 7. Lyra frowned. There were always 7. A quiet voice echoed through the tower. No. There were 8. Lyra spun around. An elderly man stepped from the shadows. His silver robes were faded with age. His long white hair rested across his shoulders. A wooden staff supported his slow steps. Yet his eyes were impossibly young. Sharp. Watchful. Almost as though they had witnessed centuries pass. "You," Lyra whispered. "Who are you?" The old man smiled gently. "My name no longer matters. The world once called me the Keeper of Crowns." Lyra instinctively stepped backward. "You know about this thing?" She touched the obsidian crown. The old man's expression softened. "I have been waiting for you. For over 600 years. Lyra stared at him. "That's impossible." "I know. It should be." He slowly approached the ancient book. His fingertips rested upon its pages. "The world celebrates Victory Day. They sing songs about heroes. They tell children wonderful stories." He looked directly into Lyra's eyes. "Every one of those stories is a lie." The room fell silent. "The Dark King," Lyra whispered, "wasn't the villain." The keeper closed the ancient book. "No. He was the last king willing to protect this world." Outside, the pounding against the tower doors suddenly stopped. The silence was almost unsettling. Then, a horn echoed across the city. The keeper's face grew grave. "They've found us." Lyra's pulse quickened. "Who?" The old man looked toward the tower windows. "The descendants of the 7 heroes. They've come to finish what their ancestors started." Outside the ancient tower, the sound of steel echoed through the streets. Royal guards surrounded every entrance. Battle mages formed glowing circles around the tower's foundation. No one entered. No one left. Inside, the Keeper of Crowns slowly turned another page of the ancient book. The parchment was older than any kingdom still standing. Its ink shimmered as though the words themselves were enchanted. Lyra stepped closer. Every page told a different story: kings, queens, wars, crowns she had never seen before. This can't be real. The keeper smiled sadly. History rarely survives those who win wars. He rested one weathered hand upon the illustration of the 8 crowns. Long before your kingdom existed, the Creator forged 8 crowns. Not to rule the world, but to protect it. His finger traced the first crown. The crown of light inspired hope. Another. The crown of storms defended the skies. Then another. The crown of flames brought strength. The crown of tides guarded the seas. The crown of life healed kingdoms. The crown of death guided souls. The crown of shadows protected secrets. Lyra frowned. Then what about the obsidian crown? The old man grew quiet. For the first time, his eyes filled with grief. It was never created to rule. It was created to carry every burden the others could not. Lyra stared at the black crown reflected in the polished page. What does that mean? The keeper slowly closed the book. It absorbed curses. It imprisoned monsters. It sealed ancient magic. It bore every darkness that would have destroyed the other kingdoms. Lyra whispered. So, it wasn't evil. No. It sacrificed itself. The words echoed through the chamber. The obsidian crown was never the villain's crown. It was the Guardian's crown. A cold silence settled over the room. Everything Lyra had believed since childhood began to crumble. The Dark King. He wore it because no one else could. The keeper nodded. Every generation, the obsidian crown chose someone willing to carry the world's greatest burden. It never chose the strongest. It never chose the richest. It chose the one willing to sacrifice everything. Lyra looked away. I stole it. No. The keeper smiled gently. It stole you. Before Lyra could answer, the tower shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. One of the stained glass windows exploded inward. A silver arrow embedded itself in the stone floor. Wrapped around its shaft was a crimson ribbon. The keeper's face turned pale. They're here. Outside, a commanding voice echoed through the ancient streets. Keeper, you are guilty of protecting the bearer of the obsidian crown. Open the tower, or we will bring it down. The keeper slowly picked up his ancient staff. For the first time, Lyra saw something hidden beneath his peaceful smile. He was not afraid. He had expected this day. For 600 years, the ancient tower shook as another blast of magic struck its walls. Stone dust drifted from the ceiling. Outside, hundreds of royal guards surrounded the tower. Battle mages stood shoulder to shoulder, their staffs glowing with golden light. Above them, griffin riders circled like hunting hawks. The keeper calmly closed the ancient book. They've brought the order. Lyra looked toward the shattered window. The order? The descendants of the 7 heroes. His voice carried no anger, only disappointment. For centuries they have ruled the kingdoms. They became kings, queens, high priests, generals. They inherited more than their ancestors' titles. They inherited their secrets. Another explosion echoed through the tower. This one was closer. The ancient doors groaned beneath the impact. The keeper sighed. They know the truth. Lyra turned sharply. Then why lie? He walked toward a faded tapestry hanging along the wall. With one gentle pull, the cloth fell away. Behind it was a massive mural, unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. 8 rulers stood together. Not 7, at the center. A king wearing the obsidian crown stood beside the other 7 crown bearers. They weren't enemies, they were allies. They ruled together. Lyra whispered. The keeper nodded. For nearly 1,000 years. Her eyes widened. But every history book says. They rewrote every history book. He pointed toward another section of the mural. The image had been violently scratched away. Sword marks scarred the ancient stone. Faces had been deliberately destroyed. Someone wanted this forgotten. The keeper's expression darkened. They succeeded. Outside, a powerful voice echoed through the streets. Keeper! This is your final warning. Surrender the crown bearer. The keeper ignored it. Instead, he walked to the center of the chamber. There, carved into the floor, was a great circular seal. 8 empty spaces surrounded its edge. Only one glowed, the symbol of the obsidian crown. The crowns were never meant to rule separately, he said quietly. They were strongest together. Lyra looked around the circle. You mean? The other 7 still exist. The keeper smiled. And someone already wears each one. Before Lyra could speak, the tower trembled violently. A deafening crack echoed overhead. One of the upper walls collapsed inward. Sunlight poured through the opening, descending through the dust. 7 figures landed inside the tower. Each wore magnificent armor unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. Each carried a different magical weapon. At their head stood a woman draped in brilliant white and gold robes. Upon her brow rested a radiant golden crown. The crown of light. Her blue eyes locked onto Lyra. For a long moment, neither woman moved. Then the Queen of Light spoke. You have no idea what you've awakened. Lyra met her gaze without looking away. No. But I think you do. A faint smile crossed the Queen's face. Then perhaps. It's finally time you learned why the obsidian crown was buried. No one ever does. The keeper stepped between them. You've come to destroy her. The Queen's expression hardened. I've come to save the world. A silence settled over the chamber. The keeper laughed quietly. 600 years. And you're still repeating the same lie. The Stormbearer gripped his spear. Enough. The keeper has poisoned another mind. Lyra looked from one side to the other. Would someone please tell me what's happening? The Queen turned back toward her. You deserve the truth. She slowly removed her golden crown. The chamber brightened. Holding it in both hands, she said, 800 years ago. The obsidian crown nearly destroyed every kingdom. The keeper shook his head. It saved them. It corrupted its bearer, the Queen replied. It carried too much darkness. The last guardian became something no human could survive. He begged the other 7 to stop him. Lyra frowned. So they killed him? The Queen closed her eyes. We had no choice. The keeper's voice was barely above a whisper. No. You murdered the only king still protecting this world. The 7 crown bearers stirred uneasily. Several avoided looking at the keeper, as though even they weren't certain which story was true. Lyra noticed. You don't all believe the same thing. The Deathbearer lowered his gaze. The Shadowbearer remained completely silent. Only the Queen answered. We believe enough. She looked directly into Lyra's eyes. The obsidian crown always begins the same way. It grants power. It whispers. It earns trust. And eventually, it consumes its bearer. Lyra remembered the voice. The gentle whisper. The warning. It had saved her life. It hadn't lied. Had it? The keeper walked beside Lyra. The crown has spoken to you already. She nodded slowly. It told me to run. The Queen's face changed instantly. Her calm expression vanished. It spoke. The keeper smiled. Then it has awakened. The Queen whispered something under her breath. The other crown bearers stiffened. For the first time, fear appeared in their eyes. Not fear of Lyra. Fear. of the crown itself. The queen slowly placed her own crown back upon her head. "I'm sorry," Lyra frowned. "For what?" The queen raised one hand. Golden light erupted throughout the tower. "Because if the obsidian crown has awakened, we cannot allow you to leave alive." The 7 crown bearers stepped forward together. Magic ignited across the chamber. The final battle inside the tower had begun. Golden light erupted across the ancient tower. The Queen of Light raised one hand. 7 radiant sigils formed in the air around her. Each represented one of the sacred crowns. Their magic intertwined like strands of sunlight, creating a brilliant cage that surrounded Lyra and the Keeper. "Do not resist," the Queen said calmly. "This is your final chance. The obsidian crown must be sealed before it awakens completely." Lyra's heart pounded. "I don't even know how to use it." The Stormbearer stepped forward, lightning dancing across his spear. "That's exactly why you're dangerous." The Keeper tightened his grip on his ancient staff. "They're afraid, not of her, of the truth." The Flamebearer slammed his blazing sword into the stone floor. Fire spread in glowing circles around the chamber. "The Keeper has hidden long enough. End this." The Queen lowered her hand. The 7 crown bearers attacked together. Lightning, fire, water, vines, shadows, silver spirits, blinding light. 7 streams of ancient magic raced toward Lyra. She froze. There was nowhere to run. The whisper returned. Gentle, steady, do not fight. What? Protect. The obsidian crown suddenly pulsed. Dark violet light spread from the crown, flowing over Lyra's body like liquid armor. The 7 attacks struck at once. The tower exploded with light. Stones shattered. Windows burst outward. The floor cracked beneath the force of the impact. When the light faded, Lyra was still standing. Not a single wound marked her. A translucent shield of obsidian crystal surrounded her, glowing softly with ancient runes. The shield hadn't reflected the attacks. It had absorbed them. Every crownbearer stared in stunned silence. The Keeper smiled. "There, you've finally seen it. The Guardian's gift," the Queen whispered. "It absorbed every spell." The Deathbearer lowered his scythe. "Just like the stories." The Shadowbearer frowned. "I thought those were myths." The Keeper slowly walked toward Lyra. "The obsidian crown never existed to destroy. It exists to carry what others cannot." Lyra looked at the shimmering shield surrounding her. "I didn't create this." "No," the Keeper nodded. "You simply chose not to hate." The words echoed through the ruined tower. For a brief moment, no one attacked. No one moved. The Queen looked into Lyra's eyes. For the first time, she no longer saw a monster. She saw a frightened young woman carrying a burden she had never asked for. Then, a scream echoed from outside the tower. Everyone turned. The sky itself had begun to change. Dark clouds spiraled above the capital. Purple lightning spread across the heavens. Far beyond the city walls, something enormous moved beneath the mountains. The Keeper's expression became grave. "They're awakening." Lyra swallowed hard. "Who?" The old man slowly looked toward the distant horizon. "The creatures the obsidian crown imprisoned. For nearly 1,000 years." Silence filled the tower. The Queen slowly lowered her sword. "If that's true." The Keeper nodded. "The world doesn't have days. Perhaps only hours." The silence lasted only a heartbeat. Then, the mountain erupted. Far beyond the capital, the earth split open with a roar that shook the entire kingdom. A column of violet light pierced the heavens. Every crown-bearer turned toward the distant horizon. The Keeper closed his eyes. "It has begun," the Queen of Light whispered. "Which prison?" The Keeper answered without hesitation. "The Northern Seal." Fear spread across the faces of the 7 crown-bearers. Even the Stormbearer tightened his grip on his spear. Lyra frowned. "What prison?" The Keeper pointed toward the mountains. 1,000 years ago. The 8 crown-bearers defeated creatures born before mankind. They could not be killed. So they were imprisoned. He looked directly at Lyra. The obsidian crown carried the burden of maintaining every prison. The moment it vanished, the seals began to weaken. Another tremor shook the tower. Outside, people screamed. Church bells rang wildly throughout the capital. Dark clouds rolled across the sky. The Queen looked toward Lyra. If the northern seal has broken, we've already lost thousands. Lyra stared in disbelief. You mean they're attacking people? The keeper nodded. They've waited centuries for revenge. The Deathbearer spoke for the first time. His voice was calm. They won't stop with one kingdom. They'll consume them all. A deafening roar echoed across the city. Not from the streets, from the heavens. Everyone rushed toward the shattered wall, high above the capital. A massive shadow crossed the clouds. Its wings blocked the sun. Its scales shimmered like obsidian glass. Its eyes burned with violet fire. The creature circled once, then released a roar that shattered windows across the city. Citizens fled in terror. Griffins scattered. Even the royal army broke formation. Lyra stared upward. What is that? The keeper's expression became grim. The first warden. It was imprisoned beneath the northern mountains. The Queen drew her radiant sword. If one warden has escaped, the others will follow. The keeper nodded. There are 7 prisons. Silence filled the ruined tower. Lyra slowly counted. 7. The old man looked at her. 1 for each sacred crown. She looked down at the obsidian crown. And mine? The keeper smiled sadly. Yours held them all together. Another roar echoed overhead. The monstrous dragon descended toward the city. Buildings collapsed beneath its wings. Fire and shadow swept through the streets. Without thinking, Lyra ran toward the broken wall. The Queen grabbed her arm. Where are you going? Lyra looked down at the terrified people below. They're going to die. The Queen searched her face. For the first time, she saw no darkness, no corruption, only compassion. The keeper smiled quietly. The crown chose well. Lyra stepped onto the edge of the shattered tower. Far below, chaos consumed the capital. She took one deep breath, then jumped. Dark violet magic burst beneath her feet. The obsidian crown carried her into the sky, straight toward the ancient monster. The wind howled around Lyra as she soared above the burning capital. Far below, citizens fled through smoke-filled streets. Royal guards struggled to hold collapsing buildings together. Griffin riders circled the monstrous warden, but every enchanted arrow shattered harmlessly against its obsidian scales. The creature roared. The sound shook the entire kingdom. Its violet eyes burned with rage and pain. Lyra stopped in mid-air. Something felt wrong. The whisper returned. Listen. She frowned. Listen to what? Its heart. The dragon lunged toward the palace. Before Lyra could think, she threw herself into its path. A wall of obsidian light erupted before her. The dragon crashed into the shield. The impact sent shockwaves across the city. Windows shattered for blocks. Church bells rang wildly. Yet the barrier held. The dragon pulled back, growling. Its glowing eyes locked onto Lyra. Instead of attacking, it hesitated. For one brief moment, she saw something impossible. Tears. Black tears rolled down the creature's scarred face. It's crying, the whisper answered. It remembers. The dragon roared again. Not with hatred. With agony. Its massive body twisted violently, as violet chains of magic tightened around its wings. Dark symbols burned beneath its scales. The keeper's words echoed in Lyra's mind. They could not be killed. They were imprisoned. Lyra finally understood. It isn't attacking because it wants to. It's suffering. Far below, the Queen of Light watched in silence. The Stormbearer raised his spear. We have a clear shot. The Queen slowly lowered his weapon. No. Everyone stared at her. Look. The dragon wasn't trying to kill Lyra. It was reaching toward her. Almost. Pleading. Lyra cautiously drifted closer. Every instinct told her to run. Yet the obsidian crown remained calm. Warm, steady. The whisper spoke one final time. Free it. Lyra slowly reached out her hand. The dragon lowered its enormous head. As her fingertips touched its scales, a flood of memories exploded through her mind. She saw 8 rulers standing together beneath a sky filled with stars. She saw the dragon soaring beside them. Not as a monster, but as a guardian. She saw the Dark King placing his hand upon the dragon's brow. "You will sleep," he promised. "And when the world is ready, the guardian will wake you." The vision vanished. Lyra gasped. The violet chains wrapped around the dragon suddenly cracked. One by one. They shattered into glowing fragments. The dragon staggered backward. The madness faded from its eyes. Its breathing slowed. It looked at Lyra. Then, with astonishing gentleness, the enormous beast lowered its head before her. The entire capital fell silent. The impossible had happened. The creature everyone feared had bowed. Not in defeat, in recognition. Far below, the Queen of Light whispered, "The legends were true." The Keeper smiled. "I told you. The Guardian never ruled through fear. It inspired loyalty." The dragon spread its colossal wings. It released one final roar. This one carried no rage, only freedom. Then, it turned toward the northern mountains and disappeared into the clouds. Silence settled over the capital. No one moved. No one spoke. Every citizen stared into the sky. The woman they had called the next Dark Queen had just saved them all. The dragon disappeared beyond the northern mountains. Silence settled over the capital. The smoke still rose from shattered rooftops. Broken towers leaned against one another. Thousands of frightened citizens slowly emerged from hiding. Every eye remained fixed on Lyra. The woman they had feared only moments before had saved them. Lyra descended gently into the ruined courtyard outside the ancient tower. The obsidian crown's violet light faded until only a faint shimmer remained. She barely had time to catch her breath before the 7 crown bearers surrounded her once again. No weapons were raised. But no one smiled. The Queen of Light stepped forward. "You had every opportunity to attack us. You didn't." Lyra looked around at the frightened people filling the streets. "I wasn't trying to save you. I was trying to save them." The Queen followed her gaze. Children clung to their parents. Healers rushed between the wounded. Citizens stared at Lyra with confusion instead of fear. For the first time, the Queen lowered her head. "I judged you before I knew you." The Keeper smiled quietly. "Wisdom often arrives after pride." The Stormbearer crossed his arms. "So what now?" "We simply trust the obsidian crown." The Flamebearer shook his head. "Absolutely not. It could still corrupt her." The Deathbearer finally spoke. "Or it could be exactly what the world needs." Everyone turned toward him. Even the Queen looked surprised. "You disagree?" she asked. He nodded once. "I've spent my life studying the old records. There were always gaps. Stories that never made sense." He looked at Lyra. "Today, I watched the Guardian protect innocent lives. That isn't the work of a tyrant." The Shadow-Bearer remained hidden beneath his hood. He spoke without lifting his head. "If the Keeper is telling the truth, then someone erased history." The Keeper answered softly, "They erased far more than history." He walked toward the ancient mural inside the tower. His fingers brushed the faded stone. "The 8 crowns once drew their strength from one another." He pointed toward the empty circles surrounding the obsidian symbol. "Now they stand divided. Weaker. Alone." The Queen slowly approached the mural. For the first time in her life, she truly looked at it. Not as a queen, but as a student searching for answers. "If the prisons are failing," she whispered, "then the 8 crowns must stand together again." The Keeper nodded. "As they once did." The Stormbearer sighed heavily. "I never thought I'd fight beside the obsidian crown." Lyra managed the faintest smile. "I never thought I'd wear it." A few of the crown bearers almost smiled. Almost. Then, the keeper's expression darkened. He turned toward the horizon. The first prison has fallen. There are 6 remaining. But something troubles me. The Queen looked up. What? The keeper's eyes narrowed. The wardens should not have awakened this quickly. Someone is breaking the seals. The courtyard fell silent. Lyra frowned. You mean this isn't happening naturally? The keeper slowly shook his head. No. This is no accident. He looked directly at the obsidian crown. We are not racing against time. We are racing against someone. Far away. Hidden beneath a mountain of black crystal. A cloaked figure stood before an ancient prison. One gloved hand rested upon glowing runes. They smiled. 1 seal has fallen. 6 more remain. The prison cracked. Night settled over the capital. For the first time in centuries, the 8 crowns gathered beneath the same roof. The ancient tower had become their sanctuary. Below them, the city worked through the night. Healers tended to the wounded. Builders cleared fallen stone. Children whispered stories of the woman wearing the black crown, who had saved them from the dragon. The story was already changing. Lyra stood at one of the tower's great windows. I never wanted any of this. The keeper joined her. No guardian ever does. She looked down at the obsidian crown resting lightly upon her brow. It still feels impossible. The old man smiled. That feeling never leaves. Across the chamber, the Queen of Light spread an ancient map across a massive stone table. The 7 crown bearers gathered around it. Lyra stepped closer. The map looked nothing like the kingdoms she knew. There were forests that no longer existed. Entire mountain ranges had vanished. Great cities had become forgotten ruins. This is over 1,000 years old, the keeper explained. It shows the world before the Great Sundering. The Queen traced a glowing line across the parchment. The prisons were never random. They formed a circle. One by one, faint lights appeared on the map. 6 still glowed. 1 had gone dark. The Northern Seal, Lyra whispered. The keeper nodded. It has fallen. His finger moved southward. The next prison lies here. A forgotten valley hidden between towering mountains. The Valley of Echoes. The Stormbearer frowned. No one has entered that valley for centuries. They say no one who enters ever returns. The Shadowbearer finally looked up. That's because the valley was never abandoned. Everyone turned toward him. He pointed to the map. My order has watched it for generations. We were forbidden to enter. The Queen looked surprised. You never told us that. I was ordered not to. Silence filled the chamber. Another secret, another lie. The keeper sighed. The deeper we dig, the more we discover how much was hidden. Lyra studied the glowing point, marking the Valley of Echoes. So that's where we go next. The Queen nodded. If another seal falls, the next warden will awaken. The Deathbearer folded his arms. And if we're too late? The keeper's expression darkened. Then no army in this world will stop it. A sudden knock echoed through the tower. Every crown bearer instinctively reached for their weapon. The great doors slowly opened. A young messenger stumbled inside, covered in dust. He dropped to one knee. Your Majesty. The Queen stepped forward. What is it? The messenger struggled to catch his breath. Our scouts. They never reached the valley. The keeper frowned. Why? The messenger swallowed hard. They found an entire army. Silence. What army? Lyra asked. The messenger looked directly at the obsidian crown. One wearing no kingdom's banner. They march beneath a single symbol. He unfolded a torn black banner. At its center was the same ancient emblem engraved upon the obsidian crown. The keeper's face turned pale. No. The Queen looked at him. You know this crest? He nodded slowly. I prayed. I would never see it again. Lyra whispered. Whose army is it? The keeper's voice trembled. The Black Legion. The army that vanished with the Dark King. The eastern gates of the capital opened before sunrise. A cool mist drifted across the fields beyond the city walls. For centuries, no gathering like this had ever existed. 8 crown bearers. 1 forgotten keeper. 1 ancient dragon soaring silently overhead. And a kingdom watching them disappear into the dawn. The citizens lined the streets in silence. Some still feared Lyra. Others bowed as she passed. A little girl stepped out from the crowd. She held a single white flower. Without saying a word, she offered it to Lyra. Lyra accepted it with a gentle smile. Thank you, the little girl whispered. You saved my brother. Then she ran back to her family. Lyra stared at the flower for a long moment. The Queen of Light rode beside her. They're beginning to believe. Lyra shook her head. I don't need them to believe. I just don't want anyone else to die. The Queen smiled faintly. That's exactly why they will. The road stretched through golden forests and rolling hills. By noon, the towers of the capital had disappeared behind the mountains. The keeper rode at the front of the caravan. His ancient map rested across his saddle. We should reach the Valley of Echoes within 3 days. The Stormbearer scanned the skies. If the Black Legion is already there, we'll be walking into a trap, the Shadowbearer quietly replied. They expect armies. They won't expect us. Suddenly, the dragon circling high above released a sharp cry. Everyone stopped. The keeper looked upward. What is it? The dragon banked sharply toward the western cliffs. Its golden eyes locked onto something hidden among the rocks. A single raven took flight. Nothing unusual, except for its glowing violet eyes. The raven watched the travelers, then dissolved into black smoke. The keeper's face hardened. We're being watched. Far away, deep beneath the mountains. The raven's smoke gathered into the palm of a cloaked figure. An enormous chamber stretched around them. Countless broken statues lay scattered across the floor. At the center, a massive stone gate towered into darkness. Ancient chains covered its surface. Each chain glowed with fading runes. The cloaked figure smiled. So, the Guardian has finally left the capital. A second voice echoed through the chamber. Cold, ancient, impossible to identify. Will they arrive in time? The cloaked figure slowly placed a hand upon the ancient chains. No. With a single touch, one glowing rune went dark. A deafening crack echoed through the mountain. Dust rained from the ceiling. The ancient gate slowly began to open. Outside, miles away, Lyra suddenly stopped her horse. She felt it. A deep ache beneath the obsidian crown. As though something had just broken. She looked toward the distant mountains. The second seal. The keeper slowly closed his eyes. No. He opened them again. We're already too late. Far across the valley, a pair of enormous crimson eyes opened within the darkness. The Valley of Echoes was already dying. Smoke drifted through the ancient pines. The river that once shimmered like crystal now flowed black beneath the morning sky. Lyra slowly guided her horse onto the highest ridge. Below, an army stretched across the valley floor. Thousands of soldiers stood in perfect silence. Their armor was black steel, etched with ancient silver runes. No banners flew. No voices carried through the wind. They waited, as though expecting the 8 crown bearers. The Queen of Light stared in disbelief. The Black Legion. They truly survived. The keeper slowly shook his head. No, they never survived. They've been waiting. A low horn echoed through the valley. The army parted. One lone rider emerged. He wore a black cloak trimmed with silver. His face remained hidden beneath a hood. At his side hung an ancient sword whose blade shimmered like polished obsidian. He stopped halfway across the valley, then calmly removed his hood. Lyra froze. He looked no older than 30. Dark hair rested against silver armor. A long scar crossed one side of his face. His eyes glowed with the same violet light as the obsidian crown. The keeper whispered a single name. Kaelin. The rider smiled faintly. It has been a long time, old friend. The queen immediately drew her sword. Who are you? The man looked toward her. I was once captain of the Black Legion. I swore to protect the Guardian. His gaze shifted to Lyra. It seems the crown has finally chosen again. Lyra stepped forward. You know this crown? Kaelin bowed his head. I served the last Guardian. The valley fell silent. The Stormbearer lowered his spear slightly. You fought beside the Dark King? Kaelin's expression hardened. There was no Dark King. There was only the last Guardian. The keeper closed his eyes. They even erased his name. Kaelin slowly unsheathed his sword. The blade shimmered with violet light. I protected him until the day he fell. I failed him once. His eyes met Lyra's. I will not fail his successor. Before anyone could respond, the earth trembled. The mountains surrounding the valley cracked apart. Ancient stone pillars collapsed into the river below. A deafening roar echoed beneath the ground. Everyone looked toward the center of the valley. The prison seal was breaking. Golden runes shattered one after another. The keeper's voice rose with urgency. The second warden is waking. Kaelin immediately turned his horse. Black Legion! Form the Guardian line! Thousands of soldiers moved instantly, not toward Lyra, but toward the collapsing seal. The queen stared in disbelief. They're protecting it? The keeper smiled sadly. I told you. They never stopped. The final rune exploded. The mountain split apart. From the darkness beneath, a colossal stone hand reached toward the sky. Then another. An enormous titan slowly pulled itself from the shattered earth. Its body was carved from black granite. Ancient runes glowed across its chest, its eyes opened, burning crimson. The titan stood taller than the surrounding cliffs. Its first breath became a thunderstorm. Every horse panicked. Every soldier tightened their grip on their weapons. Even the dragon circling above let out a warning cry. Lyra looked up at the towering giant. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. How? Do we stop something that big? The obsidian crown answered. Not alone. The colossal titan took its first step. The valley trembled. Ancient trees splintered as its stone foot crashed into the earth. Entire cliffs collapsed into clouds of dust. The Black Legion held their line. Thousands of soldiers planted their shields into the ground. Not one of them fled. Kaelin raised his obsidian sword. Hold! The soldiers answered with one voice. For the Guardian! The cry echoed through the valley. Lyra looked at the army in amazement. They're risking everything. The keeper smiled. They made that choice 1,000 years ago. The titan lifted its enormous arm. A mountain-sized fist crashed toward the valley floor. Brace! Shouted the Queen of Light. The 7 crown-bearers raised their weapons. Golden light burst from the Crown of Light. Lightning surged from the Crown of Storms. Flames roared into the sky. Great waves spiraled from the Crown of Tides. Emerald vines erupted from the earth. Silver spirits swirled around the Crown of Death. Living shadows spread across the battlefield. 7 streams of magic collided with the descending fist. For one glorious moment, the titan stopped. The valley shook violently. Cracks spread across its arm. Then, the titan roared. With terrifying strength, it pushed forward. The combined magic shattered. The crown-bearers were thrown backward. The Black Legion struggled to remain standing. Even the dragon was hurled from the sky by the shockwave. The keeper slammed his staff into the earth. No! They're still divided. Lyra understood. The crowns were fighting beside each other, not together. The whisper returned. Bring them together. She stepped into the center of the battlefield. The queen shouted, Lyra, get back! Instead, Lyra removed the obsidian crown. Everyone gasped. She lifted it high above her head. Dark violet light erupted into the heavens. The sky itself seemed to pause. The whisper echoed across the valley. Not only in Lyra's mind, but in every crown-bearer's heart. You were never meant to stand apart. One by one, the 8 crowns began to glow. Golden, blue, crimson, azure, emerald, silver, black, violet. Threads of light stretched between them, like stars reconnecting after centuries of darkness. The keeper fell to one knee. Tears filled his eyes. The circle. It lives again. The queen stared at her own crown. Its light felt different, warmer, stronger. She looked at Lyra. For the first time, not as the bearer of the obsidian crown, but as the guardian of them all. She smiled, then raised her sword. Together! Every crown-bearer answered. Together! The 8 streams of magic merged into a single beam of radiant light. It struck the Titan square in the chest. The ancient runes covering its body flared brilliantly. The creature froze, not in pain, in recognition. The crimson light faded from its eyes. Its massive body slowly lowered to one knee. The valley became silent. The Titan looked directly at Lyra. Its voice rumbled like distant thunder. Guardian. Lyra stepped closer. We're here to help. The Titan closed its glowing eyes. A single crystal tear rolled down its stone face. Too late. The earth shook once more. Not because of the Titan, but because something far beneath the valley had awakened. The Titan slowly raised one enormous hand, pointing toward the distant eastern horizon. The Master. Its body began to crumble into stone. Within seconds, nothing remained except ancient dust scattered across the valley floor. Silence followed. The keeper looked toward the east. His face turned pale. There was never just one enemy. Far beyond the mountains, a towering fortress of black crystal erupted from the earth. Its highest spire pierced the clouds. Purple lightning surrounded it. And at its summit, a single figure watched the valley from miles away. Waiting. No one spoke. The valley remained silent as the last fragments of the stone Titan drifted into the wind. Even the Black Legion lowered their weapons. The keeper slowly walked to the place where the Titan had fallen. He knelt beside the ancient dust. It has finally found peace. Lyra approached him. Who was it? The keeper gently picked up a small crystal left behind. His name was Archon. He protected this valley for nearly 2,000 years. Lyra closed her eyes. He wasn't a monster. No, he was a guardian. Just like the dragon. The Queen of Light stared toward the eastern horizon. The black fortress pierced the clouds like a blade. Purple lightning circled its towering spires. I've never seen that fortress. The keeper nodded grimly. You weren't supposed to. It doesn't belong to this age. Kaelin stepped forward. It was buried after the last guardian fell. The Stormbearer frowned. Then who raised it? Before anyone could answer, the sky darkened. Clouds twisted above the fortress. A circle of violet fire appeared in the air. Every soldier looked up. Within the flames, a face slowly emerged. A man, tall, pale. His silver hair flowed like liquid moonlight. Unlike everyone else, he wore no crown, yet his eyes glowed brighter than any crown-bearer. He smiled. So, the 8 crowns stand together once more. His voice echoed across the entire valley. Every mountain carried it. Every soldier heard it. Lyra stepped forward. Who are you? The man chuckled softly. I have worn many names. The kingdoms once called me the king's advisor, The keeper's face turned white. No. The illusion smiled. They also called me the first mage. The queen whispered. That's impossible. You died before the kingdoms were founded. The man nodded. So everyone believed. He looked directly at Lyra. I've waited 1,000 years to meet you. The obsidian crown suddenly became unbearably hot. The whisper that had always been calm was now filled with urgency. Danger. The first mage continued. I was there when the 8 crowns were forged. I was there when the Guardian fell. And I was there when the 7 betrayed him. The queen's face hardened. You're lying. The first mage laughed. Am I? He slowly raised one hand. The black fortress behind him trembled. Its massive gates began to open. Darkness poured from within. 1, 2, 10. Hundreds of glowing crimson eyes appeared inside the fortress. Then thousands. The valley fell silent. The valley fell silent. They're awake, whispered Kaelin. The first mage smiled. You freed only 2 wardens. I have awakened an army. The illusion began to fade. But don't worry. He looked one last time at Lyra. I'm not trying to destroy your world. His smile widened. I'm trying to restore mine. The vision vanished. Silence. No one moved. The keeper slowly lowered his head. I feared this. Lyra looked at him. You know him. The keeper nodded. He didn't betray the Guardian. He betrayed humanity. Far beyond the mountains, the gates of the Black Fortress opened completely. A river of shadow poured into the world. No one slept that night. The campfires of the Black Legion stretched across the valley like stars fallen to earth. Beyond them, the Black Fortress loomed against the moonlit sky. Its towering spires seemed impossibly tall. Its walls weren't built from stone. They were carved from black crystal that pulsed like a living heartbeat. Every few moments, purple lightning raced across its surface. The keeper stared at it in silence. I never thought I'd see it again. Lyra joined him atop the ridge. It feels alive. The keeper nodded. It is. She looked at him in surprise. What do you mean? The fortress was forged alongside the 8 crowns. It was never meant to imprison the world. It was built to protect it. Lyra frowned. So why is it our enemy now? The old man sighed. Because its master forgot what he was protecting. Across the camp, the Queen of Light studied the fortress through an ancient spyglass. It's changing. Kaelin joined her. The first mage is feeding it. Every prison seal he breaks, the fortress grows stronger. The Queen lowered the glass. How many seals remain? 5. The word hung heavily in the cold night air. 5 chances. 5 disasters waiting to happen. 5 opportunities to fail. Before dawn, the 8 crown bearers gathered around the keeper's ancient map one final time. He pointed toward the fortress. There is only one path inside. A bridge known as the Bridge of Kings. The shadow bearer frowned. It was destroyed centuries ago. The keeper smiled. So everyone believed. He tapped the map. A hidden passage still exists beneath the cliffs. Kaelin nodded. The Black Legion can hold the valley. But only the crown bearers can enter the fortress. Lyra looked around the circle. Then it's the 8 of us. The Queen corrected her. No. She looked toward the keeper. 9. The old man smiled softly. My fighting days ended long ago. Perhaps. The Deathbearer stepped forward. But your wisdom hasn't. For the first time. The keeper laughed. I've waited centuries to hear someone say that. The group shared a brief smile, one they all knew might be their last. As the first rays of sunlight crested the mountains, the Black Legion formed ranks. Thousands of soldiers struck their shields together. Boom, 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 the sound rolled across the valley. Kaelin raised his obsidian sword. The Guardian walks into darkness, so that others may live in the light. Every soldier repeated the words. The chant echoed from cliff to cliff. Lyra felt the weight of the obsidian crown, not as a burden, but as a promise. She turned toward the Black Fortress. I won't let history repeat itself, the whisper answered gently. Then write a new one. The ancient gates of the fortress slowly opened. Darkness poured from within. One by one, the 8 crown-bearers crossed the old stone bridge. Behind them, the Black Legion remained to defend the valley. Ahead, only silence awaited. Deep inside the fortress, the first mage smiled. They've finally come. He rose from an ancient throne of black crystal. The floor beneath him glowed with the symbols of all 8 crowns. They're exactly where I wanted them. As he stepped forward, a hidden door behind the throne slowly opened. Within the darkness, 5 enormous chains stretched into the abyss. Each chain bound something unseen. One chain snapped. The sound echoed through the fortress like thunder. The first mage smiled wider. Only 4 remain. The great gates closed behind them. The sound echoed through the fortress like thunder. Silence followed. Not the peaceful silence of an empty place, but the silence of something watching. Lyra tightened her grip on the obsidian crown. Every instinct warned her to turn back. Yet the whisper remained calm. Keep walking. The entrance hall stretched farther than any palace she'd ever seen. Black crystal pillars rose hundreds of feet into darkness. Purple flames burned inside floating lanterns. None gave off heat. Each reflected the faces of people long forgotten. The Queen of Light looked around uneasily. This place feels familiar. The keeper nodded. It should. You've seen it all your life. She frowned. I have? The old man pointed upward. The ceiling slowly began to glow. An enormous mural spread across the crystal above them. It showed the 8 crown bearers standing together. Not in battle. In celebration. Children laughed around them. Farmers harvested golden fields. Dragons soared peacefully across bright blue skies. There was no war, no darkness, only peace. Lyra whispered, so this was the world before. The keeper smiled sadly. Before fear divided it. The Stormbearer stared at the mural. My family always said the obsidian crown brought darkness. The keeper looked at him. No, it carried darkness. So no one else had to. The words lingered in the silent hall. Ahead, 8 enormous statues stood in a perfect circle. Each held one of the sacred crowns. Except one. The statue of the Guardian had been shattered. Its head lay broken across the floor. Its crown had been deliberately carved away. Lyra slowly knelt beside the broken stone. Someone hadn't simply destroyed it. They had hated it. The Queen reached out, brushing dust from the statue's hand. Who would erase this? A quiet voice answered. I would. Everyone spun around. The first mage stood at the far end of the hall. He had appeared without a sound. His silver robes flowed like mist. His violet eyes reflected the glowing crystal walls. He smiled almost kindly. I see you've found the Hall of Forgotten Kings. Kaelin immediately drew his sword. Stand back! The first mage ignored him. Instead, he looked only at Lyra. I've waited 1,000 years to show you this place. Lyra refused to lower her gaze. You've broken the prison seals. Yes. You've unleashed the wardens. Yes. You've killed innocent people. For the first time, his smile disappeared. No. I awakened prisoners. The innocent. He slowly raised one hand toward the shattered Guardian statue. was sacrificed long before I returned." The Queen's voice sharpened. "You're twisting history." The first mage shook his head. "No. I am restoring it." Without another word, he stepped backward into the shadows. The crystal floor beneath him rippled like water. He vanished. The silence returned. Then, a deep grinding sound echoed through the hall. The shattered guardian statue began to move. One broken hand slowly reached across the floor. Purple light filled the cracks in its stone body. The keeper's eyes widened. "No. He's awakened the sentinels." One by one, the remaining 7 statues turned their heads. Ancient crystal eyes flared to life. The Hall of Forgotten Kings had awakened. The crystal floor trembled. One by one, the 7 towering sentinels stepped from their stone pedestals. Their armor groaned with the weight of 1,000 years. Purple fire burned within their hollow eyes. Ancient swords slowly emerged from crystal scabbards. The sound echoed through the hall. No one moved. No one breathed. The keeper's voice broke the silence. "Do not underestimate them. They were created to protect this fortress." The Queen of Light raised her radiant blade. "Then we survive. Or we prove ourselves worthy." The largest sentinel took a single step. Its voice rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. "State your purpose," the keeper answered first. "We seek the heart of the fortress." The sentinel lowered its massive sword. "Denied." The crystal beneath everyone's feet exploded. The battle began. The Stormbearer charged first. Lightning burst from his spear, striking the sentinel's chest. The blast echoed through the cathedral. When the light faded, the sentinel hadn't moved. Not a single mark remained. The Flamebearer unleashed a torrent of fire. The emerald vines of the Lifebearer wrapped around another sentinel. The Queen's golden light illuminated the hall. Together, the 7 crown bearers unleashed enough magic to level a mountain. Still, the sentinels continued walking. Slow, relentless, unstoppable. One massive sword swung downward. Kalen barely intercepted the blow. The impact shattered the crystal floor beneath him. He slid backward nearly 20 feet. His arms trembled. "They're stronger than the Wardens." The keeper shook his head. "No, they're simply doing exactly what they were created to do." Another sentinel raised its weapon. Its blade pointed directly at Lyra. Guardian identified. Every sentinel immediately turned toward her. 7 glowing eyes locked onto the obsidian crown. The Queen stepped between Lyra and the advancing giants. "You'll have to come through us." The largest sentinel tilted its head, almost curiously. "The circle." Its voice faltered. "Incomplete." Lyra felt the whisper again. Not from the crown, from the fortress itself. "Do not fight them," she frowned. "They're trying to kill us." "No, they're testing you." Another crushing blow sent fragments of crystal flying through the air. The Black Legion captain shouted, "Lyra!" She ignored the battle around her. Instead, she walked forward, straight toward the largest sentinel. The Queen reached for her. "What are you doing?" "I think," Lyra whispered. "They're waiting." The sentinel raised its enormous sword high above its head. Every crown-bearer shouted at once. "Move!" Lyra didn't. She simply placed one hand upon the obsidian crown. "I am Lyra. I bear the 8th crown. I haven't come to conquer this fortress. I've come to remember." The sword stopped. Only inches from her face, silence filled the hall. The sentinel slowly lowered its weapon. Its glowing eyes changed from violet to brilliant silver. One by one, the other 6 sentinels lowered theirs as well. The largest knight slowly knelt before Lyra. Ancient runes across its armor burst into golden light. Its voice was no longer harsh. It sounded almost human. Guardian recognized. Trial accepted. The floor beneath the hall split open. A spiral staircase of glowing crystal descended into the darkness below. The sentinels stepped aside, making a path. The keeper smiled through tears. "I knew it. They were never guards. They were judges. The largest sentinel looked directly at Lyra one final time. Only truth may pass beyond this point. The crystal staircase pulsed with soft light. Far below, something ancient stirred, waiting. The crystal staircase spiraled deep beneath the fortress. Each step carried the heroes farther from the world above. The purple glow faded. In its place, a warm golden light slowly appeared. Lyra frowned. I thought this place would be darker. The keeper smiled sadly. So did I. The staircase finally ended before a pair of enormous white crystal doors. Unlike everything else in the fortress, these doors were untouched by shadow. At their center rested 8 empty circles, each shaped exactly like one of the sacred crowns. The obsidian crown pulsed. The whisper returned. Home. Lyra slowly approached. Without thinking, she placed one hand upon the central symbol. The doors opened, not with a roar, but with silence. Beyond them stretched an enormous circular chamber. Its ceiling shimmered like a night sky filled with stars. Crystal rivers flowed through the floor itself. In the very center stood a single throne. It was empty. Above it floated a crystal sphere no larger than a person's head. Inside, golden light swirled endlessly. The keeper fell to one knee. The memory heart. The queen whispered, It actually exists. Lyra looked around. What is it? The keeper answered softly. It remembers everything. The fortress records every choice, every promise, every betrayal. As Lyra stepped closer, the crystal sphere began to glow brighter. Then, the room disappeared. She stood in brilliant sunlight. Children laughed in the streets. Dragons flew peacefully above shining cities. The 8 crown bearers stood together before thousands of cheering people. At their center stood a young king. He wore the obsidian crown. He looked no older than Lyra. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't frightening. He smiled as children ran to him. One little boy handed him a flower. The guardian knelt. Thank you, the keeper whispered from somewhere beyond the vision. His name was King Aster. Lyra watched as the young king walked among his people. No guards followed him. No one feared him. They loved him. The vision shifted. Years passed in moments. The skies darkened. The first mage stood before the 8 crowns. His face was desperate. We cannot keep imprisoning them. The worlds are dying. King Aster shook his head. If we break the barrier, millions will perish. The first mage stepped closer. My people will vanish forever. They deserve to live. And ours deserve to survive, Aster answered. The argument grew louder. The first mage pleaded. Aster refused. Then, the first mage drew a blade. Lyra gasped. No. The blade pierced Aster's side. The other crown bearers rushed forward. Magic erupted throughout the chamber. The obsidian crown flared with darkness. Not from anger, from protection. King Aster looked at his friends. His voice was weak. Do not let hatred choose for you. The Queen of Light fell beside him, crying. We can still save you. Aster slowly removed the obsidian crown. His hands trembled. No. The crown must choose. He placed it upon the crystal throne, then looked at each of the 7 crown bearers. Promise me. No matter what history becomes, protect the world. His eyes found the keeper. And when the next guardian comes, tell them, I forgave them. His light faded. The chamber became silent. The vision ended. Lyra found herself back inside the memory chamber. Tears streamed down her face. No one spoke. The Queen of Light had fallen to her knees. Her hands shook uncontrollably. My ancestors. They never betrayed him. They tried to save him. The keeper nodded. They honored his final wish. They hid the truth. Because they feared another war between worlds. Kalen lowered his head. The Guardian died protecting everyone. Lyra looked toward the crystal sphere. So, the first mage wasn't trying to become king. The keeper's expression hardened. No. He was trying to bring back the world he lost. Before anyone could speak again, the crystal sphere flickered violently. Its golden light dimmed, cracks spread across its surface. The keeper's eyes widened. No! The memory heart! A deafening explosion shook the chamber. The first mage stepped from the shadows. One hand was wrapped around the glowing sphere. I've let you remember enough. With a single squeeze, the memory heart shattered. Golden light burst through the chamber like a dying star. Golden fragments of the memory heart drifted through the chamber like falling stars. Silence followed. The first mage lowered his hand. The last piece of crystal dissolved into light. So, the past has finally been buried. Lyra slowly stood. No. She looked directly into his eyes. The truth doesn't disappear just because you destroy the proof. For the first time, the first mage's calm expression cracked. You still don't understand. His voice echoed through the chamber. I never wanted to become your enemy. I wanted to save my people. The keeper stepped forward. And how many worlds must die for yours to live? The first mage looked toward the shattered throne. Wouldn't you do the same? No one answered. Because no one knew. The chamber suddenly shook. A violent pulse spread through the fortress. The crystal walls cracked. Far above, the sound of battle echoed through the halls. The Black Legion was fighting. The keeper looked upward. The Shadow Army has entered the fortress. Kalen gripped his sword. They're buying us time. The first mage sighed. They're buying you nothing. He slowly raised both hands. The floor beneath the throne split apart. A vast abyss opened below. Within it, 4 enormous chains stretched into darkness. Each chain glowed with fading golden runes. Only 4 remained. The first mage pointed toward them. When the last chain breaks, the barrier between worlds will fall forever. Lyra stared into the abyss. What happens then? He answered honestly. My world returns. The queen stepped forward. And ours? The first mage closed his eyes. It disappears. The obsidian crown suddenly became unbearably warm. The whisper returned. Not as a voice, as a memory. Lyra saw King Aster again, not dying, smiling. He stood within endless starlight. The crown was never forged to defeat evil. It was forged to carry impossible choices. Lyra whispered. What do I have to choose? The ancient king stepped closer. The barrier cannot survive forever. One world must remain, and one must fade. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. There has to be another way. King Aster smiled sadly. That is why. The crown chose someone kinder than me. The vision vanished. The obsidian crown floated from Lyra's head. For the first time, it hovered in the air by itself. The chamber filled with soft violet light. Ancient symbols appeared across the walls. The keeper fell to one knee. The heart of the crown. The queen stared in amazement. What is happening? The keeper's voice trembled. The crown is revealing its final gift. The violet light gathered into a single crystal. Inside, 2 worlds appeared. One was bright and green. The other shimmered beneath silver skies. They slowly drifted apart. Then, a narrow bridge of light formed between them. The keeper gasped. No. It wasn't a prison. Lyra looked at him. What? He smiled through tears. The obsidian crown was never meant to keep the worlds separated. It was meant to keep them connected. The first mage froze. His eyes widened. No. That's impossible. The keeper turned toward him. You spent 1,000 years trying to tear down a wall. That was actually a bridge. Silence consumed the chamber. The first mage slowly stepped backward. For the first time, he looked afraid. A deafening crack echoed through the abyss. One of the 4 chains snapped. Only 3 remained. The fortress trembled violently. The final battle had begun. The fortress groaned, not from battle, from age. Ancient crystal pillars cracked as waves of violet energy surged through every chamber. The floor beneath Lyra's feet trembled violently. Then, another chain snapped. The sound echoed through the abyss. Only 2 remained. The first mage slowly closed his eyes. Relief washed across his face. So close. So very close. The keeper slammed his staff against the crystal floor. "You'll destroy both worlds." The first mage looked at him with quiet sadness. "No. I'll finally save one." A deafening roar interrupted them. Not from inside the fortress. From the heavens. Everyone turned toward the great crystal windows. The sky itself was splitting apart. Massive cracks stretched across the clouds like shattered glass. Beyond them, another world became visible. Silver mountains. Floating islands. Cities suspended beneath glowing moons. It was breathtaking. And terrifying. The barrier between the worlds was collapsing. The queen whispered, "I can see it." The first mage smiled. "My home." Outside, the Black Legion fought desperately across the fortress walls. Kaelin stood at the front of the defense. "Hold the gate!" Shadows poured from the broken prisons. Creatures of living darkness climbed the crystal towers. The ancient dragon circled overhead, breathing silver fire across the battlefield. Yet for every enemy that fell, 2 more emerged. The valley had become a war zone. Inside the throne chamber, the obsidian crown suddenly rose into the air. It spun slowly above the abyss. The 8 crown symbols carved into the walls blazed with radiant light. The whisper returned, stronger than ever before. "Guardian. The bridge cannot remain broken." Lyra looked up. "Then tell me how to fix it." The answer came immediately. "Become it." She froze. "What?" The keeper suddenly understood. His face drained of color. "No." Lyra turned toward him. "What does it mean?" The old man struggled to speak. The Guardian was never just a ruler. He became the living heart of the bridge. Silence filled the chamber. The queen stared at him. "You mean?" The keeper nodded slowly. "King Aster didn't simply wear the obsidian crown. He gave his life to keep both worlds alive." Lyra looked back at the floating crown. "So, if I repair the bridge..." The keeper closed his eyes. "You may never return." No one spoke. Even the first mage lowered his head. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Another explosion shook the fortress. The final battle outside was reaching the gates. The great crystal doors shattered inward. Kaelin stumbled into the chamber. His armor was cracked. Blood stained his cloak. He struggled to remain standing. The Legion. They can't hold them much longer. Behind him, thousands of shadow creatures flooded into the fortress. The dragon roared. The walls began collapsing. The keeper whispered, "We're out of time." The first mage slowly drew his ancient blade. "If you refuse, I will finish what I started." The queen stepped beside Lyra. "So will we." One by one, the 7 crown bearers stood together. Storm, flames, tides, life, death, shadows, light. And finally, the obsidian crown. For the first time in 1,000 years, the circle stood complete. The first mage raised his sword. "I never wanted this." Lyra summoned the obsidian crown into her hand. "Neither did I." A wave of violet and golden light erupted through the throne room. The final battle had begun. The throne chamber exploded with light. Gold, silver, violet. The colors collided like stars being born. The shockwave shattered crystal pillars and sent fragments raining across the chamber. The 8 crowns answered their guardian. One by one, they rose from their bearers. Floating above the battlefield, the circle was complete. For the first time in 1,000 years, its true power awakened. The first mage looked upward. A faint smile crossed his face. So, it still remembers. Lyra stepped forward, the obsidian crown hovering just above her outstretched hand. It remembers hope. The first mage raised his ancient sword. And I remember loss. Without another word, he struck. A blade of violet energy ripped across the chamber. Lyra raised the obsidian crown. The attack collided with a wall of shimmering black crystal. The impact shook the fortress. Far below, another chain groaned. Still, it held. Outside the throne chamber, chaos consumed the fortress. The Black Legion fought shoulder to shoulder with the ancient dragon. Flames lit the crystal towers. Shadow creatures poured through shattered walls. Kalen stood atop the broken staircase. His obsidian sword flashed through the darkness. "Hold the line!" Beside him, the Queen of Light's royal guard arrived from the valley. For the first time in history, the armies of Light and the Black Legion fought together. Old enemies, now united. Inside, the first mage unleashed wave after wave of ancient magic. Each spell reshaped the battlefield. Crystal bridges became rivers of light. Walls folded into impossible staircases. The fortress itself obeyed his command. Lyra realized they weren't fighting inside the fortress anymore. The fortress was fighting with him. The keeper shouted, "He's bonded to its heart." Lyra looked around. "Then how do we stop him?" The keeper answered, "You don't destroy the fortress. You free it." The first mage appeared behind her in a flash of silver light. His blade stopped inches from her heart. "I warned you. You cannot save everyone." Lyra met his gaze. "No, but I can stop more people from suffering." Their magic collided again. This time, the obsidian crown answered. Instead of darkness, brilliant violet wings of light spread behind Lyra. The chamber fell silent. Even the first mage stepped back. "No. That power," the keeper whispered in awe. "The Guardian's grace." No one had seen it since King Aster. Lyra didn't attack. She simply extended her hand. "Please. It doesn't have to end this way." The first mage's expression softened for the briefest moment. He looked almost tired. "I've spent 1,000 years trying to save my people." His voice broke. "If I stop now, then every sacrifice meant nothing." Lyra took another step. "Then let their sacrifice mean something different." Before he could answer, a thunderous crack echoed beneath the chamber. The second-to-last chain snapped. Only one remained. The fortress shook violently. Massive pieces of crystal crashed from the ceiling. The barrier between worlds was collapsing faster than ever. Through the widening rift, millions of distant lights became visible. Not monsters, not armies, families, children, entire cities waiting in the fading world beyond. The queen stared in disbelief. "They're real." The first mage closed his eyes. "I told you. I was never fighting for power. I was fighting for them." Silence filled the chamber. For the first time, even the crown bearers understood. This wasn't a battle between good and evil. It was a battle between two worlds, both trying to survive. Then, the final chain began to crack. The final chain broke. The sound echoed across both worlds. The fortress shook with unimaginable force. The sky above shattered like glass. The bridge between the two worlds began to collapse. Mountains crumbled. Rivers of light poured into the endless void. Cities on both sides trembled as reality itself unraveled. For one terrifying moment, everyone believed it was over. The first mage dropped his sword. He stared through the widening rift. On the other side, he saw them. Children running through silver fields. Parents shielding their families. Elders looking toward the breaking sky. His people. The people he had fought for over 1,000 years. Tears filled his eyes. "I was too late." Lyra walked beside him. "No, you were just alone." The first mage looked at her. "I thought only one world could survive." Lyra slowly smiled. So did everyone else. She lifted the obsidian crown high into the air. Its violet light reached toward the heavens. The whisper returned one last time. "Guardian, a bridge is never held by one pillar." Lyra finally understood. She turned toward the 7 crown bearers. I can't do this alone. The Queen of Light stepped forward first. You never were. One by one, the other crown bearers joined her. The storm bearer smiled. No more divided kingdoms. The flame bearer nodded. No more forgotten truths. The bearer of life placed her hand over her crown. We stand together. The death bearer smiled gently. As we always should have. Even the shadow bearer removed his hood. No more secrets. Finally, Kaelin knelt before Lyra. The Black Legion kept its promise. Now let us finish it. The first mage looked around the circle. For the first time in 1,000 years, he saw what King Aster had believed in. Not crowns, not power. People. Slowly, he removed the crystal pendant from around his neck. It contained the last fragment of his world's ancient light. He placed it into Lyra's hand. My people will trust yours. Lyra closed her fingers around it. Then she reached out. Together? The first mage took her hand. Together, the 8 crowns rose into the sky. They formed a perfect circle. Golden, blue, crimson, azure, emerald, silver, shadow, obsidian. Their light surrounded the collapsing bridge. Instead of forcing the worlds apart, the crowns wove them together. A bridge of living crystal stretched between the 2 realms. Not a prison. Not a wall. A path. The collapsing skies healed. The cracks disappeared. The storm faded. Sunlight poured across both worlds. The shadow army dissolved into harmless stardust. The black fortress transformed before everyone's eyes. Its black crystal became brilliant white. Flowers bloomed along its walls. The ancient bridge shone brighter than the morning sun. High above, the dragon released one final triumphant roar. Then dozens more answered. From both worlds, dragons filled the sky once again. Not as weapons, as guardians. The keeper smiled through tears. King Aster, we kept your promise. Months later, the kingdoms no longer stood alone. The Bridge of Crowns remained open. Scholars crossed between worlds. Artists shared music. Farmers exchanged seeds that had been lost for centuries. Children from both realms played together beneath skies that no longer divided them. The Black Legion laid down their weapons. They became the first guardians of the bridge. Their name was no longer feared. It was honored. The Hall of Forgotten Kings was rebuilt. At its center stood a new statue. Not of a conqueror, not of a villain, but of King Aster, standing beside the 7 crown bearers. United. As history had always intended. Beside it stood another statue. A young woman wearing the obsidian crown. Not as a queen above others, but as a guardian among equals. Lyra often visited the bridge at sunrise. Sometimes she saw children from both worlds laughing together. Sometimes she saw dragons soaring across the endless sky. And sometimes, she simply smiled. Because she knew the greatest victory had never been winning a battle. It had been ending one. The old stories would always remember the obsidian crown as a symbol of darkness. But the new stories told a different truth. The obsidian crown was never meant to rule the world, it was meant to unite it. And from that day forward, no history would ever be erased again. The greatest crown was never worn by one ruler, it was carried by those who chose to stand together. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until our next tale, farewell.